Often coming to your senses can be where we get that nudge. But because the nudge is uncomfortable, or we're not really 100% sure, or we have too much thinking about that, we can ignore it. But that nudge is something that's continually prodding until finally the straw breaks the camel's back and we pay attention. And that's the story that I want to share with you today in relation to a significant career change that I had in my life. But before we get to actually what happens, I want to take us back to little me when I was about 8 years old. So I remember distinctly being sat around the dining room table with my mum and my dad and my brother. My parents worked extremely hard to provide food and shelter for my brother and I, and oftentimes working more than one job each in order to sustain our life, really. And I remember this one particular evening where my dad, who was sat directly opposite me at the dinner table, he kind of wasn't there. He was just eating his dinner. So I said to him, I think I was about 8. I said to him, "How was your day at work?" Innocent question. I get asked, "How was my day at school?" So I thought I'd ask, "How was your day at work?" And my dad kind of half-heartedly looked up from his dinner and shrugged his shoulder and went, "It was work," and then head down and he carried on eating. So I thought, okay, I'll try mum. So I looked at mum and I said, "How was your day at work, mum?" And again, hardly really looking up. She looked at my dad, looked at me and went, "Well, same as your dad, really," and carried on eating. And I don't know whether I actually said this aloud, but I certainly thought it, that I never want to be doing any kind of work where that's my answer. Even at that young age, I had this perception that whatever I do for work, I want to be happy. And that was always my mantra. Whatever I'm doing, I want to be happy. Now, I didn't have glamorous jobs, especially initially. My very first job at the age of 14 was to be a butcher's girl. That was my Saturday job, was working in a butcher's shop. But I found ways to have fun and be happy in that work. There was some fantastic banter with the guys that I worked with and the customers. I had the opportunity to take home the Sunday dinner because we were given that as part of our kind of pay each week. And there was the radio was on, so I used to sing and enjoy that and did my best. It wasn't always great, and believe me, I didn't like going home smelling the way that I smelt every week. But nonetheless, I did my best to make it fun. And I did the same thing when I was working in a dental factory, when I worked as a waitress, when I was a breakfast waitress and chef, when I was a chambermaid, when I worked in a children's nursery. And I've had all sorts of different jobs, but that was always my thing, was I'm only going to stay doing this job as long as I'm happy. If I'm not happy, then I want to leave this job. So let's cut to me then what I decided to do as a teenager and what I wanted to do as a long-term career, which was work in theatre. Long story short, I ended up going to drama school to study stage management, and I spent 10 years working in theatre and television around the UK. And for the first 6/7 years, I absolutely loved it. I had a ball. It was my dream. It was hard work. It wasn't glitz and glamour. It was a lot of late nights. It was a lot of very long hours. Working with temperamental people, not just on stage, those off stage as well, including myself. But it was a bundle of fun for the first 6-7 years. I really, really loved it. But then at some point, I think it was in the 7th year, maybe it was a 7-year itch, I don't know. But I got that nudge, but I ignored it, because that nudge was telling me, you need to leave. You need to leave this environment, this industry, this work. And I just thought, no, it's just the particular place that I'm working in at this time, and that's what I need to leave. So I started looking for a new job and got a new job. So started working in a different place, different people, and back to being happy again for a period of time. And then the nudge started prodding again and again. And it was a case of, I'll just change jobs. I'll find another job, and then I'll be happy again. So I did. I applied for another job, got another job, another theatre, and thought I was going to be happy at that point. And by that point, I was working in the city that I lived in, which was kind of a first, really, that I actually had a home as opposed to a room in somebody else's house, digs, really. But I actually had a home with a boyfriend at the time in the city that I was working in, and had a permanent, I'm hesitating because it was kind of permanent, but not permanent in various ways, which I know sounds contradictory, but that's the world of theatre. At least it was back then. And so I was really thought that this was it. This was like the pinnacle. But this nudge kept coming back more and more and more. And I couldn't work out what it was. And it was something that just kept saying to me, you can do more, you can have more, you can learn more. You're going round in circles here, and it's not the right place for you anymore. And I went on a trip I actually did a charity, one of those charity hikes, and I did the 100-kilometer hike through the Andes to the wonderful monument of Machu Picchu, the city in Peru. And on post that journey, I then went traveling around Peru, and I met a lovely lady on my travels who worked for a big corporate at that time. And she said to me, I think you could be doing so much more. And she pushed that nudge a little bit more. And then I met somebody else who said very similar, which was, I think you could be doing so much more. And it took those nudges plus a couple of significant things that happened in the workplace for me to go, do you know what? Enough is enough. And I sat down at the computer in the stage management office, and I typed out for the first time in my life ever a resignation letter, and printed it off, and with shaking hands put it in the envelope, and went to find the general manager of the theatre. And I handed him my notice. And when he read it, he was shocked. And he said, look, okay, fair enough. You're not happy here. Where do you want to work? Let me help you. Let me help you find somewhere that you're going to be happy, which I thought was an extremely generous way to respond to a member of your staff handing in their notice. And these words came out of my mouth I hadn't really thought about. And I said, I don't want another job in theatre. I'm resigning the industry, not just this job. And we had this intense conversation for quite some time of him really shocked, saying, you know, what are you going to do? And me answering, I don't know. And what's your plan? And I don't know. And have you been thinking about this for a long time? Yeah, kind of. And not really knowing where to go. But I just had this deep knowing that 8-year-old knew what was right. If I'm not happy anymore, something needs to change. And I tried the changing theatres. I tried changing the roles. None of that had worked. And I knew kind of, even though it was scary and that I was leaving a world I'd been in for 10 years by this point, the nudge had been poking for quite some time. But I knew it was the right thing to do. I knew it was the prime time for me to leave. And so I did. I had a big leaving party and left. And for the first few weeks, it felt like I was on holiday or in between contracts and would going back very soon. But actually, it took, I think it was probably about a month, maybe a month and a half, for me to realize I wasn't going back. And that was then the realization hit of what the holy hell had I done, and where was I going and what was I doing? Now, I, as a coach now, am working with people who often come in that situation of going, I don't know what to do, but I'm not happy where I am work-wise. What should I do? And I will recount this story, and I will say to them that, you know, there are times in our lives where we do need to empty our plate before we refill it. We need to really just create that space to see what happens. And for some people, that's the perfect thing to do. And that can be offered sometimes when they have been let go from work, or when there's an opportunity for voluntary redundancy, or just redundancy in general comes along. And so it can be a perfect time to create that space to then explore what's right for you in that moment, what's next. But it's not right for everyone to do that. But we do need to listen to ourselves within that, and that inner wisdom. And for me at that point, what I was very clear on was the only world I'd known for 10 years. From leaving my A levels at 18, I'd gone straight to drama school. So I only knew the world of show business. I then had left drama school and gone to work in theatre, and hadn't really been unemployed in that whole time that I'd been working. So I'd done 10 years pretty much solidly in TV and theatre in the UK, and didn't know any other world. I didn't have qualifications that I could put on paper that kind of stamped and was very articulate for this new world that I was stepping into, as to what really I was going to do next. What did that actually mean? And I didn't really know what it was that I wanted to do that was going to make me happy either. So for me at that point, what I then did was I just signed up to a job agency that gave me the opportunity to do temporary work in a bunch of different environments. So through doing that, through working in a children's nursery, through working in different marketing agencies, through working in retail, through working in a hospital, there were so many different environments that I was plunged into for a period of time, that it was a brilliant opportunity to then see how the skills that I had were transferable. And also being able to articulate that, so that then when I was looking for other work, I could then articulate, rather than talking about it through the lens of theatre and stage management, I could talk about it through the lens of normal people's work, everyday people's work. And it just gave me the opportunity to start reflecting on, okay, so what did make me happy? What did light me up? And how did I want to be spending that time? Now, for me, what happened in that process is actually, whilst I was doing all these temporary jobs, I'd been given the opportunity to get coaching for myself. If you haven't listened to episode 1 and how I ended up heading towards coaching, then make sure you go back and listen to episode 1. But through the process of being given the opportunity to have coaching, I was then given I was then sponsored to go and do some initial foundation training in coaching, and loved it. Just thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. So was doing it for myself, just as something to while away the time until I found the thing that was going to make me happy next. That was how I was articulating it at the time. But then through my training as a coach, what happened was you have to have case studies. And those case studies started referring me to other people. And those people were phoning me up and saying, oh, I hear you do this coaching thing. Can I book in with you? And when are you available? And how much do your sessions cost? And it was at that point that I had this realization of, oh, maybe this is the thing that I do. Maybe this is the thing that I can do next before I find the next thing. That was 18 years ago. It's now 2024 that I record this episode. And it was over 18 years ago that I discovered that, and subsequently started in business as a coach, and have enjoyed all sorts of wonderful moments of working with clients, given sort of phenomenal opportunities where this process has been concerned. And it is something that lights me up, having the opportunity to work with people, having the conversations that I do, both in groups, in small groups, through the membership, through workshops, through training, through speaking, webinars, all of these things. I never dreamed would be it would be possible to find work that lit me up this much, and couldn't be more grateful. So sometimes it can take us a while to realize, and take us a while to get there. I think we get very hooked up on, by this age I should have, or I should know what I want to do because I'm choosing GCSEs or A levels or what university degree, or I want to leave this career and I should know what I want to do next. And actually, very often we don't really take the time to A, think about what lights us up, and B, listen to that internal wisdom that's going to give us the guidance and the direction in order to be able to navigate that and find that. So my invitation, if you would love to, if you're having challenges where your work is concerned, you want to really explore that, is create some space, not by handing your notice in. If you're in a place to do that, then fine, but it's not my immediate encouragement. But give yourself some space away, maybe do some volunteering or go on holiday for an extended period if you can, or just see if there's another opportunity, a secondment or project that you can get involved with at work to explore what else you're capable of, explore what lights you up. And maybe that's through your holidays, through your hobbies. But explore that and see what happens, and really listen to that inner guidance, that little nudge that's saying, go look at this, go study that. It may not be that thing that it's directing you toward that's going to be how you earn your living or spend your time, but it may be the stepping stone to something else. My internal nudge that went on for 3 years was telling me to get out of the industry that I was in, not because it's a bad industry, but because it was not the right industry for me anymore. It didn't tell me anything about this other business, but it was just giving me that inner guidance to just recognize, time out. It was now time to leave. So thank you for listening today to Coming to Your Senses, and recognize that very often it's that gentle nudge that keeps probing that can really help you experience more of your true self. I look forward to speaking to you on the next episode.